News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis. Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
Welcome to Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning.
And I'm Alan Gilbreth with darkoakmedia.com.
And I'm Maximilian, wishing a belated happy birthday to our nerdy buddy, Diego Luna.
Oh,
right,
wait a minute.
man.
Andor himself, right?
Andor himself.
How old is he?
I believe he's 43.
43. Huh. I thought he was younger than that. So, folks, if you have not seen the Disney Plus miniseries Andor, it is hands down the best. I mean, it's the best written story. I mean, best written, best acted. It's kind of more of an adult Star Wars, but it is outstanding. I think it's going to be winning some awards this year.
Well, you know, the great thing is, if you took the Star Wars aspect out of it, you still had an amazing drama.
It is, folks. We
Really
can't,
stands on its own beautifully.
It is. So happy birthday. And he nailed it. He knocked it out of the park.
And it's December 29th, the birthday of somebody else I'd like to salute, but I'm not going to say.
Oh, that's a T. Yes, put a pin in that, Max, because I know exactly who you're talking about. So, well, Alan, anything interesting happened to you this weekend?
I don't know, Joe. We had Winter Mageddon this week.
Yeah. So,
So for those of you listening to us outside of the Memphis area, we all got hammered.
Today's a good day to chime in on the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989. And we especially invite you to send pictures because I guarantee there's photo evidence of this was a Christmas to remember. I know that.
Who hit who with a hammer?
Right. Yeah. It's like, I mean, it's going to be, where did that come from?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Well, he said that we got hammered, so.
We did.
Okay.
Everybody.
Yeah. So check that. I think today we need to all commiserate over here on Tool Talk Radio.
Yeah.
We've got.
I don't need to
Alan.
commiserate. I just want to watch you all languish.
Okay, we've all been affected. Our buddy Brandon Olmstead was. You were. I was.
Wow.
We'll get to that. This was a Christmas I will never forget. So if you're in the same boat, folks, give us a call at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline. Call or text us at 901-683-0989. And we have sort of a humorous must-have items of the week this week, Alan. I've already posted it on Tool Talk Radio on Facebook. You can check that out. It's sort of a combo pack.
Yes.
And it's all inspired by Ice Mageddon. What do you eat? I don't see.
I called it Winter Mageddon.
Winter-mageddon.
Yeah. We didn't get the blizzard. We got these just bone-chilling cold. Below us got all kinds of crazy water events.
Right.
Huge storms. To the east of us got massive snowfalls. And heaven help Buffalo, New York.
I mean, Canada? What was Canada, like 34 below?
Yeah, they just got buried.
Yeah.
It's just amazing.
Buffalo.
But that's every day in Canada.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Canada and Buffalo,
Buffalo took a pretty good
there.
beating.
Yeah.
One of my favorite pictures was the restaurant by the lake. They got turned in basically a giant ice sculpture. It's just like, all right, it's a beautiful picture. Man, I feel sorry for that building. Oh, my gosh.
In with that in mind, there's no doubt that Alan's Week in Review is going to be, I'm sure it's going to be related to Ice Mageddon or Cold Mageddon, whatever we need a catchphrephrase for this one.
Yeah, I'm going to call it Winter Mageddon because it delivered one of everything.
Okay, so we've got that. I've got a 30 years of stupid related to the plumbing in my house.
Oh yeah,
which
easily.
And if you follow my own personal Facebook, you'll see my thoughts about the plumber whoever that was that did the plumbing in my house. Alan, like I said, we have our must-have item of the week. To shift gears a little and throw something on there that maybe puts us in mind of warm temperatures and beauty and the clever design and the beauty of nature. For our great moments in building history today, we're going to talk about the Grand Canyon Skywalk over in northern Arizona. It's a very interesting project. At first blush, you're like, oh, okay, that looks interesting, until you learn the engineering that went into this, the geological work that went into it. It's a pretty all-encompassing project. And
then when somebody goes, oh yeah, and by the way, it's glass.
Yeah.
That's when you go, not going to walk on
But
that.
it's a pretty interesting. Great moments in building history, and it really deserves it because it's very well constructed and it's an interesting piece of architecture. So, but we've got a couple things to get to, Max. Before we get to, I think you and I are going to tag team a little. You've got something that a shout out. Is that right? Somebody's celebrating a birthday today, or just celebrated a birthday.
Yes, a belated happy birthday to our good old buddy Flossie, the world's oldest cat. Turned 27 this week.
That's pretty impressive. Any way you slice that, that's pretty impressive.
Do we still do the cat ears thing? Is it still basically?
It's about 120 years.
Wow. So what's Flossie? How did Flossie celebrate?
You tell me.
Opened its eyes.
It wasn't chasing nothing, that's for sure.
Okay, Flossie's a female cat, right?
I believe so. But the oldest one, she's the oldest living. The oldest cat in recorded history is a cat named Cream Puff, and I believe she lived to be 38.
Okay,
wow.
38. I don't know. Do you want your cat to go 38? How's old Flossie looking today, Max?
She's actually looking pretty good, all things considered.
Mm-hmm. Where is she?
I'm at England.
Of course.
What is it about the British just know how to endure, don't they? So.
It's they got dogs that live to be 40. They got cats that live to be 40. They're doing something okay over there. What can I say?
Okay. Wow. Well, Flossie, we salute you here, and may you live another 27 years.
Hey,
I don't
go
know.
for it.
Okay. Flossie's been getting a lot of mileage on this station. Weren't you talking about this the other? Basically every show here has been talking about Flossie, right?
To some degree, even on the Nation of Jake a while back, because Jake has like a cat. He calls it the cat that lives in his house, not his cat.
Right.
And so the cat that lives in his house is 20 years old. So it's like, all right, you got to breed a champion now.
Wait a minute.
Once Flossie's been dethroned.
He's got a 20-year-old cat?
I believe so.
Well, you know what he's going for. I mean, because I will give Jake this. He's all about self-promotion. And if he suddenly becomes, if Flossie, I hate to say it, when Flossie goes across the Rainbow Bridge, who's next? I wonder who's next in line. Jake may start.
The line of succession.
He may be up there getting some international. Could you imagine the Nation of Jake getting international coverage for his cat? I mean, I don't know, man. Okay. Well, Flossie.
It could happen.
Long live Flossie. Okay. Hey, I got a question that is totally unreal. I guess I'm sort of hesitant to start leaning into all our horrifying news and the horrifying things we have to discuss. But this is a legitimate question, and well, it's not a legitimate, but this is something that's happened to me. I'm a big fan of Buc-ee's gas station.
Yes, you are. Immodestly fond of
one of your one of your sons says that he's convinced that it's a cult.
Well, that was my point right here, Max. So basically he was talking to me about, because now in fairness, he's never been to Buc-ee's, because I carry a Buc-ee's thermos with me pretty much wherever I go, because I like to stay hydrated, and I've got a nice 40-ounce tumbler. So when I set that down at a job site or something, you talk about a conversation starter. Everybody has an opinion about it. They're like, oh my gosh, my family and I went to Buc-ee's, or we went to this, or they have an opinion of, I'm not going there. It's too big. It's too crowded. But Buc-ee's gas station it's almost like it's an institution. Okay. Have you been to Buc-ee's, Allan?
All right. Well, let's throw in road culture.
Road culture.
Road culture. Because let's start with Lambert's.
Okay.
All right, Lambert's, there's two of them that I know of. There's one down in Florida. There's one up here in Sikeston, Missouri.
Yeah.
And it is the home of the throwed roll.
The
translation, you go eat there, they actually have a little station, and if you want a roll, they're going to throw it at you.
Right.
They're going to chuck this thing across. I'm not making this up. And Lambert's, you owe us money now.
Yeah.
So welcome to the home of the throwed roll. And this is purely a road food culture kind of place.
It's a gimmick. Hey, Allan, you and I were on a road trip, and we tried to go to Lambert's, and like, oh, yeah, it's only an hour and a half wait, or so we skipped it.
We skipped it. But, there are places like Bucksnort, Tennessee, Hog's Breath, North Carolina, Truth or Consequences, New Mexico, even out by Roswell, New Mexico, the Little Alien.
Oh, yeah, of course.
There is an entire food culture of these places all over the country.
Right.
Buc-ee's is just the latest
I don't know. Buc-ee's does it
probably-
pretty well.
And probably one of the one that leans into it the most. Because, right up here in Jackson, Tennessee, we have the Casey Jones Museum.
Yeah.
And a restaurant is attached to it that is full of all kinds of bric-a-brac and craziness to walk around and look through. So welcome to what's left over of what I used to call the Route 66 mentality. If you built a giant bowler hat on the side of Route 66, people would pull over and stop and eat at the giant bowler hat.
Well, my opinion about Buc-ee's too, and folks, if you haven't been to Buc-ee's, I should explain. It is and it's only in certain parts of the United States.
Right. It is a trucker's rest stop.
Although no truckers allowed, Alan. That's part of it. That part of the mystique is that they don't want it clogged up
with the big trucks. But basically, this is the idea. When you see those giant truck stops, what you don't realize is they also have showers.
Oh, they got everything. Yeah.
They've got food. They've got supplies for being on the road. So this is that idea.
I love
Buc-ee's
those. Those are great.
Just picks up the idea and runs with it like a 4-year-old with a brand new pair of scissors.
So if you pull up to Buc-ee's, there are usually on average about at least 100 gas pumps.
At least.
The gas station itself is the size of like a big box store, like a Target or something like that. It does boast the world's cleanest bathrooms for a gas station, and they are. They're clean, they're big, they're spacious, and then they've got a restaurant. They sell, I call it a restaurant. It's walk up. You still take it with you. They've got some they hired an award-winning barbecue chef. You probably know the guy. I'm sure he's been through Memphis here, and he does all their brisket, and he supervises the training and all that. They make their own fudge. They have every kind of souvenir that you can stick up. They stick Buc-ee's face on everything. But the thing is, I think it's one of the most brilliant business models, because it's like you take something that might be a hassle, or we've been on a road trip before, Alan.
Oh yeah.
You go to that really sketchy gas station in the middle of nowhere, and it looks like something out of a horror movie.
Flickering, and it says "Pet the Life Tiger" on the back wall. Yeah,
you got all your, you got kids with you. You don't want to do that, so they take what could be a hassle and turn it into an event. But it's funny because it's amazing how polarizing Buc-ee's can be, because I've got people that are like, you couldn't pay me to go in there, and then there's other people who are like, I'll hold it for an hour to get to Buc-ee's, and I'm one of those people. I love Buc-ee's. I think it's awesome. So I apologize to no one for that.
Well, guy, welcome to again the Route 66 mentality, when getting out on the road was in itself its own adventure.
Yeah,
because if you look at the whole old Route 66 idea, which went from Chicago to California, people nobody had ever driven out west. You're from the east. You're trees and buildings and people. They'd never been out.
They haven't seen the desert.
And the roadside attraction of the post-World War II era began. And so we even used to have, and I don't think anybody younger than me has ever even seen one, there used to be rolling advertising down the side of rural highways.
Oh, I've seen it. You have a truck with a billboard on it.
No. These were like signs telling like dad jokes.
Oh, yeah.
2 or 3 words at a time, about half a mile apart, up and down these things.
Oh, yeah.
So you'd be driving along, and it would be sponsored by usually something like Barbasol shaving cream or something like that.
Right.
So, I mean, these were just part of the culture of the rising new culture of the car.
Sure.
Yep. And Buc-ee's really has just been the biggest winner in this mentality. And, all I got to say is fair play. Keep doing it, because let me tell you something.
It makes the world more fun.
It's like you said, it's clean.
Yeah.
It's safe.
Yeah.
It's well lit. You can get something to eat. You can get off the road. And you got a story to tell when you get home.
The only regret is that it's a shame that Buc-ee's wasn't around when they made the Chevy Chase vacation movie where they're on the road to Wally World, because Buc-ee's would have been featured in that. Would have been 30
been
minutes
better than
of that
Wally
movie.
World, because Wally World was terrible.
Anyway, but it's fun. I just wanted to mention that because on job sites I'm constantly discussing my Buc-ee's thermos and everything. So, hey, Alan, before we get into Wintergeddon or whatever the heck we're calling this thing, I do have a question about lumber prices because I'm sure other people are thinking about this. When I go to my big box store, it's getting weird again. Okay, we know 2020. We know there were issues. Okay, there were issues because they had to shut down things in 2020 with COVID restrictions. We know that there are developed supply chain issues. We know that, and as you said, things that happen today will affect things, 6 months from now or something. So, but Alan, here's what I can't figure out. I go because I've got a project and I need to get some lumber again, once again. So I'm looking, and I like to look through the whole section. So there's some lumber that's sort of reasonable. It's like, there's some like a 2x4 these days is about $5, which is more than it should be. A picket fence board is about $3 or something like that. Then you get to the plywood aisle and it could be $90 for a sheet of plywood or something. But then there's some that don't seem to have been affected at all. So I guess my question is twofold. Some, obviously making plywood involves cutting thin layers. There's probably a lot more labor intensive. So I guess what's going on again, Alan? Break it down for me because I'm just wondering when we're going to get back to normal.
I can cover your question in 2 words.
Good.
Hurricane Ian.
Really? Okay, talk to me.
Category 4 hurricane, September 30th, 2022, wandered across Florida and wandered up the eastern seaboard.
Okay.
They're still rebuilding it.
Oh, they're buying up all.
And there goes all your lumber. Because Ian.
So it's a supply and demand issue.
Ian lasted forever. Ian came rolling up, hit Florida, and then just kind of visited all the good hot spots all the way up the eastern seaboard. So once again,
I forgot about that. They're rebuilding.
And it's 90 days. It's 90 days later. So welcome to where all of your plywood is.
Well, plywood and it's like I said, it's fence board. It's basically, now that you're saying this, it makes a lot of sense.
Materials.
Right, because there's a few, and even like some lumber where it's like a 1x4 or something, just a straight up piece of pine, and things like double or triple what it normally would be. So,
well, we had a massive Category 4 went up the Atlantic seaboard, and guess where all your lumber's gone?
Oh boy,
because it did billions of dollars worth of damage here, there, and everywhere. So, that, and like you say, you got to look at these things in like 90-day bites.
That's what I was about to ask. Well, it's obviously going to take more than 90 days to rebuild Florida.
Well, let me give you a horrible 90-day prediction.
Okay.
Right now in China, they're having a massive COVID problem.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Guess what that's going to mean somewhere around March.
Okay.
Back to supply chain issues.
Yeah.
Because a lot of products are not going to be shipping on time.
Is our lumber affected by that? Because I guess that's I'm mostly thinking of lumber at the moment, just because that's what
it can be, because lumber is an international stock trade.
Mm-hmm.
So when lumber, trips up in one area, some other area generally steps up production to keep it filled.
Right.
But it takes time. So, you look at these things in 90-day cycles, and I'm going, all right, guys, you need to look at your logistics, going to be at your local big box, not hardware store, but your general big box stores.
Right.
Those towels may be getting a little more expensive around March until supplies come in later. The excess of patio furniture might disappear in April because, welcome to the international supply chain.
Huh. Okay. Well, getting back to lumber, because I do have another question about that. So one thing that sort of irritates me is some people think that if you cut down a tree, it's dead forever or whatever. Trees are a renewable resource. If you manage the forest properly, and if you you plant it and it grows again. But my question is, like for our 2x4s and things like that, how long does it take to grow a tree to get to a point where it can be cut down and then turned into 2x4s, more or less? So, or is that even a factor in this? Do we have plenty of trees, or is it the processing? I guess.
Well, it is a managed forest, so you're looking at about a 12 to 20 year turn, depending upon exactly what you're trying to produce.
Oh, okay. So it's that long,
right?
Yeah.
So you're looking on average for your faster growing, softer woods for things like your 2x4s.
Right.
You're looking at about a 10-year turn, so they want to only harvest X amount per year and replace that per year so you have a perpetual supply for in the future.
Okay. Gotcha. So I don't know. It's just a lot of
forestry management is very important to us.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, man, but it just seems like the processing, and then like you said, I guess the whole I didn't consider the factor of that big, the big storm and rebuilding and everything. So now it's a supply and demand situation.
Well, Ian kind of got overshadowed by suddenly us getting buried in 4 feet of snow. So Ian's kind of dropped out of the news, but it's for us, especially in the construction side of things, he's still kind of big news because he's soaking up a lot of our resources.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, you got to really, pay attention and plan and everything. It's almost to the point now. If you get a good price on lumber, just buy it and store it in your garage when you can. So, all right. Well, Allan, that's good information, my friend. We're going to take a quick break here at Tool Talk Radio. When we come back, oh man, I shudder to think we're going to talk about Allan's Week in Review.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
I've been going door to door looking for fire hazards. Mind if I give your place a little inspection?
News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis.
He's the kind of guy we needed for this winter Mageddon.
Oh, yeah, just come on into my home. Wow. No problem. And welcome back to Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Allan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our buddy Max over there behind the glass. You can call or text us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989, and it's a really good day to do so. I mean, you can commiserate. I'm sure there's people out there that had as fun of a Christmas as we did, and probably worse. I know if you had any issues with your pipes bursting or power outages and just the power going out with that cold weather was rough on a lot of people. So
it was not fun.
It was a week to remember, but it was definitely a Christmas that we'll never forget. But you can also we also invite you to go over to Tool Talk Radio's Facebook page and check out the action over there, including the post I made of our must-have items of the week, because they're all working in concert to
yes.
They're must-have items. I wish I'd have made them last week.
And you said they sound like the name of a law firm, but I'm not going to say why.
Oh yeah, good point, Max. So that's a little tease for you too. So go check it out over at Facebook, the Tool Talk Radio Facebook page. So hey, Allan, I don't know. I haven't heard from our buddy Jay Hill with Big M Roofing and Remodeling, but I have to imagine he's had an interesting week. I don't know.
I saw him this week.
Well, what is it like putting roofs on? They stop for no one. And with the snow, honestly, we didn't get a whole lot of snow. So, I mean, I'm sure they were chugging along even amidst this cold, right?
Well, it was more damage mitigation this week.
Okay, so this week was
a lot of tree branches got snapped off. A lot of things hit a lot of roofs. So.
Well, okay, gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. So sometimes it's reconnaissance. Sometimes it's putting those roofs in. So
when is it ever search and destroy?
Yeah. Anyway, if you've got any roofing issues or remodeling projects, get in touch with our buddy Jay Hill at Big M Roofing and Remodeling. For one thing, he is always 5 stars with the Better Business Bureau. I guess he's never gotten less than a 5-star review. 5 stars with Good Housekeeping. He's a GAF Master Elite installer, and they put in roofing systems.
Yes.
And as we've shouted from the mountaintops, a roofing system is a comprehensive. It does, driving by, you may not realize how technologically advanced these roofs are, Allan. But I mean, there's a lot of thought that goes into every component, and it creates a roofing system.
Yes,
so, I mean,
there's a lot more to it than we go back. There's so many roofs, especially in the Mid-South, that are over 50 years old.
Mm-hmm.
The actual system was, basically you put some wood up there, you covered it with something, you got shingles mostly straight, and you hoped it didn't leak. And that's
hope
just
you didn't get
not,
too much wind.
Yeah, that's just not the way it is anymore.
And you go in the attic, and it's 900 degrees up there and everything. So one key factor of the roofing system are these ridge vents, which are basically standard issue now with Jay Hill. They They cut a vent at the very peak of your roofs, and they put in these ridge cap vents, which they don't leak. They're fine. And they let your roof breathe. And suddenly your house is running cooler, your attic's running cooler, and your shingles are running cooler from underneath, which is where a lot of damage happens.
They're not baking.
They're not baking. And so your roof, that's why they can offer a lifetime transferable warranty on their roofing systems. And the other great thing about Jay, of course, is that he's a former insurance agent. He when you have to make a claim, maybe you have a claim for your roof to be replaced, like you and I have, or repaired. It's a process, and you need to understand the process, and Jay Hill is sort of the expert with that. So, and he's got basically this whole consultation is free.
Yes.
And he's a riot to deal with anyway. The other thing sometimes we fail to mention, Alan, is the fact that Jay also has he has a great relationship with up to 30 different lenders. More or less, you can, if you need to finance this baby, you apply, you're probably going to get approved by at least 5 or 6,
right.
And then you select the terms that work for you. So if you're caught off guard and you suddenly find that you've got to do a roof replacement or a roof repair, financing is available too. And Jay is just a dynamic personality, and he really gives you the sense that you're in good hands, and you're dealing with competent professionals. And somebody that actually cares. Jay Hill lives and breathes roof replacement.
Yes,
I mean, that's
he
his.
honestly does.
If he has a vocation in life, this is what it is. He's doing what he was born to do. Anyway,
or to quote Palpatine, fulfill your destiny.
Exactly.
He does.
Yeah. Anyway, get in touch with our buddy Jay Hill at Big M Roofing and Remodeling. You can call him directly at 901-484-5645 or go to bigmroofingandremodeling.com. All right, Max, I didn't prepare you, but it's time for Alan's Week in Review.
Oh, the humanity.
I think that undersells it this week, Alan, because we're all going to – I think it's going to be Tool Talk Radio's Week in Review. But go ahead. Let's start with what you dealt with this week.
Let's just start with the word cold. Well, there's so many stories. I'm just going to go with, the big highlight.
Okay.
Because I want to throw out a cautionary tale to every homeowner in the Mid-South of a big trend in the last few years has been to add decorative lighting on the exterior of your home. So you've lit up a tree or you've lit up a walkway. Now, there's lots of cool little solar devices you can get to put out there, but let's face it, they don't really last all that long or really work all that well.
They haven't really perfected them. They look great for a while, then
cheap.
they sort of peter out.
They're really cheap, and I'm just going to leave it as they're cheap.
Okay.
So a lot of people have opted to run electrical lines. Okay, here's where we're going to start our story.
Yeah. And full disclosure, I love outside lighting. I think it makes your house safer. It makes it look better. It's dramatic. It's cool, but do it correctly.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Even if you did it correctly, we have had a lot of water. We have had some absolutely unprecedented cold.
Mm-hmm.
And ice can damage anything.
Oh, yeah.
Ice can split a pipe, can it, Joe?
Yeah. Spoiler alert. Yes, it can. So,
it can split a pipe.
Right.
It can also split conduit.
Mm-hmm.
It can split
No,
your
it'll
fittings.
split a car engine, Alan.
It can split anything.
By the way, don't just put straight water in your radiator.
Oh, no,
and then
no.
And then forget about it over the winter. You'll have a cracked car engine.
You're gonna lose.
It always
more
wins.
than that. Yeah.
Water always wins.
So here's what can happen if you haven't tested your exterior lights, because nobody's going in the backyard right now. I would strongly suggest the first nice, calm, semi-dry day we have, you need to test them.
Okay.
Because you do not want to get a phone call like I got, wondering if a small volcano was beginning to form in the middle of a property.
So wait. Okay, go ahead. Never mind. I'm keeping my checklist of questions.
Water is bubbling. Steam is pouring out of a tiny little hole, and it is beginning it's honestly making like something from Yellowstone, like boiling
like
mud.
a geyser.
Like boiling mud, just hissing and going and going and hissing. And we're trying to figure out, is there a water main underneath there? Is this steam? Does it smell? And happily, one of my assistants, stuck his face down there close enough to kind of go, I think I smell something burning.
Yeah, no. Well, I
So-
hope he had rubber shoes on. So
Yeah, well,
I mean,
here we
okay.
go. So we immediately began looking around, and of course, this was at a parking lot. So we're going, okay, what's on? Well, of course, the solar detectors, the little photo eyes, it was still pretty dark.
Right.
So the lights were on. So we're like, okay, let's start throwing breakers. So we finally found a breaker that turned off the little volcano.
I'm sort of okay. Go ahead, because I have a question about that. Alan, here's my question. You've got this volcano, which more or less, I'll give you credit. You took a picture. It's
Yes.
this red glowing thing under a puddle of water, letting off steam. Why didn't that trip the breaker? That should have. Isn't that a safety flaw?
Well, it's because of what it was arcing. It was arcing to the conduit. It wasn't feeding back into the breaker.
Electricity.
Yes.
It's still a mystery to me.
There's a reason it is called the theory of electricity, not the law, because electricity
really
is
know what
going
it'll
to do
do.
whatever it wants to do when it wants to do it.
That seems like a pretty big safety concern.
Eventually, this thing would have tripped a breaker. Yes.
Okay.
Because of the way the water and everything was interacting, it was still feeding it power.
So
Because-
it must have been dripping on this line.
No, the line was underground and had split, and of course, water is now pouring down into it. And the ice had already damaged the cover on the wires, so it was arcing out to the conduit,
Okay.
thus making the cute little volcano coming up out of the ground. And happily, we figured it out. We saw it. We shut everything down really quick. And that's when the real fun begins, because
Okay.
now you got to dig all of that up.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, what you're talking about is a electrical line that was not buried deep enough, or was it just not protected, insulated well enough, or?
Well, here's what happens. People don't realize, especially in the Mid-South, that tree roots and stuff will push things up out of their way.
Oh, good point. Yeah.
And we have a lot of really nice big trees. And of course, when you're looking at this parking lot, it's got some really nice mature trees around it.
Right.
And where some of the roots had, gone, move over, child, I'm coming through,
Yeah.
had pushed. You could look around the outside of the parking lot and you could occasionally see like a sprinkler head that would be sticking up.
Yeah.
And that's because a tree root underneath it has pushed it up close to the surface. Well, it had pushed this particular piece of conduit up close to the surface, close enough to where the cold got to it. And of course, because the root had pushed it up, it was slightly bent. So it made a spot where the wires weren't just perfectly down the middle of it anymore.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Okay.
This wasn't an overnight event. This has been going on for decades to arrive here.
Yeah.
But sooner or later, you're going to reach a failure point.
What happens if you're digging and you hit that with a shovel? Are you getting zapped?
You're going to get zapped.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, you could very easily get zapped if your trees and bushes have moved things from where you think they're supposed to be. So my big cautionary tale here is we just had massive cold. It froze into the ground more than the inch or two we're used to.
Oh, yeah.
And for those of you that live up north, the people up in Wisconsin are right now dying laughing at us.
They think we're a bunch of wimps.
Because,
so, yeah.
they know ice moves everything for the first 6 to 12 inches underground, which is why they got to have 18-inch footings or 24-inch footings.
Alan, can I just throw something in? Because it's, once in a we don't talk about it much here in the Mid-South because we don't deal with it a lot. But, however, there is this thing called the frost line.
Yes.
If you build a fence or if you build anything that involves setting like posts, like a mailbox or anything, you have to consider the frost line because it will move things. And
It will lift
anything
them right
you
up out of the
bury,
ground. Yes.
it's worth the extra effort, to shovel it out and dig that extra amount deeper. I want to say our frost line here, my rule of thumb, I thought it was always 18 inches as far as like if you're digging a fence post. Is that right? I mean,
well, it's like 18
the frost
inches
line is probably 8 or 10 inches, but to be safe, you go below that. So
right.
if you're going to bury something, go pretty deep.
If you're going to bury a water line or something, it needs to be at least 6 inches underground, for
I'd
what
be
we're doing.
deeper.
But
Yeah.
I would definitely go like 12. But in
and
this
I would
case,
definitely insulate it well, put it in some sturdy piping and everything to be
in
safe.
this particular case, these tree roots had brought it up to within 2 inches of the surface.
I didn't think of that factor. So digging near a tree.
We had to sawzall out a fairly substantial tree root to get everything back down to an appropriate level, and put in a box that would properly house it. And this is just one of these things people don't think of because, well, the backyard lights have always worked.
Well, and probably back when they put these in, that tree was tiny.
Half the size it is 10 years later.
They might not even have planted it.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is my cautionary tale to, all of our lovely homeowners out there. If you've got buried lighting, you've got buried wires in your front yard or your backyard, I would strongly suggest over the next week or two, as soon as you get a nice pretty day, let's test them. Because you may not have them on now because, well, nobody's in the backyard in the winter. But let's test it and make sure we're not going to burn something up or set a tree on fire before we get to spring.
Alan, I just got our next $1 billion idea.
Okay.
So, and you're a computer guy. You could do this. So,
yeah.
And if you're out there and you steal this idea and you patent this idea, then we want our cut.
Yeah.
You just made me think of something. Okay, with our technology we've got today, I'm just picturing you could take your house. Let's just suppose you build a house and you put a tree there. You put your light, and it would be interesting if you could do like a time lapse. Like an app that tells you a time lapse. It says in 5 years, your house is going to look like this. And it does a mock-up simulation. It shows the tree expanding. It shows things deteriorating. And wouldn't it be interesting if you could create a app or just create some sort of computer program where you could project out, okay, maybe it's not a good idea to put that maple tree over there because in 10 years, it's going to look like this. And it's going to create these problems. In other words, you preemptively design with all of the factors interacting. You could say this PVC pipe that I buried over here has a 50-year lifespan, or it has, what I mean? I think that would be kind of interesting because sometimes we just don't think of all the dynamics of the way these things interact. I didn't think the problem, when you told me about this morning, I didn't think the problem was going to be tree roots, and they didn't probably either when they, when they put it in, but suddenly all these things interact.
I'm thinking of a couple of the more premium neighborhoods we have off of Poplar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And when you get off to these into these homes, they were built right at about 50 to 60 years ago.
Right. Yeah.
Very nice, very well done. But we hadn't quite made the conversion to PVC underground piping yet. So
we're still dealing with metal pipes that can corrode.
A lot of these homes of, 10 years after they moved in, thought planting a tree right in the dead center of the front yard would be picturesque. Well, 20 years earlier, right down the dead center of the front yard is where they ran that either metal or clay pipe.
Yeah.
Heaven help you if it's clay, because that tree found that pipe fast.
Oh, yeah.
And has moved in with you and has possibly collapsed your sewer pipe going out of your home. And there is... let's just say there's a couple of plumbing companies in town that specialize in certain parts of town digging up front yards and replacing iron or clay piping. And they're all homes built right around the same period, right around late 50s, early 60s.
And those guys always wind up working a neighborhood. I've seen that. Like, I'll be working in a Midtown or something.
You'll see the same truck at this front yard, and then a month later, they're at that front yard, and a month later, they're at the one across the street.
Right.
Yeah. Memphis has reached that age where a lot of this subterranean infrastructure has reached its lifespan.
Yeah, it's a very fertile. It's interesting because my daughter, she lives in New Mexico, and the dynamics they deal with are different than here. Tree. They don't really think a lot about tree. They think about protecting your home from dry and heat and moisture. Almost like moisturizing your skin. They have to moisturize their house and things like that. And it's just here, man. Memphis is one of the most fertile places I've ever lived. I mean, you can just watch stuff You can watch your grass grow practically overnight.
Well, if it's kudzu, you can literally watch it grow.
Right. and man, does that create a lot of issues. It's like, if we ever abandoned Memphis and everybody left for 10 years, we'd come back, it would be a forest.
There'd be a kudzu pile instantly. The cautionary tale is of after such a serious event,
Yeah.
Be very aware. Do a little maintenance, go get some of those little enzyme cleaners. Let's get some drains cleaned. Let's double check some electrical. And another one I want to throw in, if you haven't capped and covered an outside spigot, they have some wonderful new heavy test plastic caps for your outside spigots.
Oh, nice.
I cannot advocate these highly enough. It is a 98-cent part that can save you thousands of dollars in plumbing later down the line.
Can I mention something really quick about that? I'm glad you brought that up because one thing, they make these they're called non-freeze. Everybody knows that when it gets cold here, you're supposed to cover your outside water spigots with a foam. They've made these new what are they called? I guess they're called non-freeze pipes or something because basically what it is when you turn the faucet on, the plumbing mechanism is inside the house away from the cold. However, if you leave your garden hose attached to that, you just undid the whole thing because you're creating a water connection. So, folks, if you have one of these non-freeze pipes, you still have to take the hose off.
Get the hose off, and I am still going to tell you cap it and cover it.
I would just go careful. I would definitely do the just be safe because cold and ice will find its way. So, hey, Alan, we didn't tease this at the beginning of the show, but I do want to bring something up. We've got to hit on our design flaws.
Ooh,
I've got a topic
like a
here.
loose nail.
1 out of 25 ain't bad.
You don't have any code violations, do you? Nope.
How many times do we have to teach you this lesson, old man?
What do you think of the house that Love built? Oh, shoot.
Max, I still want to. We still need a new design flaws. I don't like piggybacking and borrowing from other segments, but anyway, because later we've got a 30 years of stupid coming up.
Oh, Crimea River.
Okay. Anyway, but hey, Alan, this is. I want to be careful how I word this because I don't fully. I like parts of this, but there are parts of this item that definitely suffer from a design flaw, and that is tankless water heaters because I can't tell you how I got, you get your phone calls. I was getting my phone calls from in-laws and also my wife's friends and everything like that about their tankless water heater because this week with the situation we found ourselves in was cold and power outages, which created things that created a lot of problems.
One problem wasn't enough, here's another. Yeah,
I do love the concept of a tankless water heater, and I think it's the right direction to go. However, the design flaw seems to be that a lot of these are installed in attic spaces, which are obviously exposed to the cold. And there is, regardless of the fact that you could have insulated pipe, but there's still enough connections that are not insulated. They're just fully exposed to the cold, and they can crack and they freeze. We've seen that happen, and it can be a pretty catastrophic damage if that happens. But honestly, you're probably more in tune with the function of a tankless water heater, but we're not quite there. I think we're 80% there with tankless water heaters. What do we need to do to make these safer and to make them where they'll function the way they should? So,
well, all right. Sadly, back in the 50s, we went very kind of this institutional cafeteria style kind of ideas. Mm-hmm. And by the time we got to the 70s, we totally forgot that certain things need space.
Oh.
Like a kitchen.
Yeah.
Because we have galley kitchens that, as I look over here at Max, he'll fit in, but you and we're not cooking anything together.
Yeah. Two people in the kitchen at a time.
Whoever invented the sunken living room needs to just be, you just need to be gone.
Right.
Okay, so here's what we need to rethink. Hot water tanks and tankless heaters and things like that are absolute mission critical to a house need to be in a room designed for them. I don't mean a big room, just a closet, but it needs to have a floor drain.
Right.
And it needs to be environmentally controlled so that your water tank is not sitting outside being berated by 0-degree temperatures, or your tankless water heat system is where you can't see it or find it. And they're also installed horrible places where when a failure does happen, it is going to cause more and more and more damage trying to contain the event. So I am a huge advocate of additional shutoffs that are easy to get to.
Yeah.
And floor drains. Put this stuff in a closet with some tile and a floor drain. So when you got a failure, you've got a fail safe.
And if it's within the house, it's not exposed to extreme temperatures like it is in the attic.
Right, but it's got a drain.
Right.
So don't put it in the attic so you can collapse the ceiling, 2 bedrooms, and take out Fluffy the cat.
Maybe that's the design flaw. It's being installed in the wrong place.
Yes.
And it's and they're not taking into account catastrophic events like what
everything
we have here.
will fail. Must have a plan.
Okay, we might tie up that thought because tankless water heaters are a big deal these days. So, well, we hope today's show is a big deal. Anyway, terrible segue, but you're listening to Tool Talk Radio. Hour 1 is in the can, but stay tuned for Hour 2 and especially our great moments in building history.
News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis. Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
And welcome to Hour 2 of Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Alan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass. You can call or text us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989. And we invite you to go to Tool Talk Radio on Facebook and check out the action over there. Join the page. Give us a like and share the page. There's things that we post, including our must-have items of the week. I'm about a week late. I should have done this last week, Alan, but these are hot items. Trust me. If you went to the big box store this week, these were probably sold out, So
Yes.
Get these now in preparation for the next time you're going to need them. Hopefully you're not going to need them for a while, but they're mission critical items. And I'm already getting some interesting responses from them. So, hey, Alan, in this hour of Tool Talk Radio, we are going to be getting shortly to our great moments in building history. It's nice. We're going to take a break from the cold and wet and water problems and go out west and talk about
someplace dry.
The Grand Canyon Skywalk over there in northern Arizona, which is a really interesting construction. It's a very interesting discussion we're going to get to. But we need to wrap up a couple things from Hour 1. If you're just tuning in, we've obviously been talking about the Winter Mageddon or whatever we're calling these. It's funny, the way Memphis is situated, or I should say the Mid-South, we get in these weirdest situations. You get a half an inch of snow and you get some sub-freezing temperatures for a few days, and suddenly all what breaks loose. And it's just, it causes all sorts of problems. And I'm like, I think we need to really up our game as far as our...
And within 3 days, all right, after a low of 0.
Right.
4 days later, just 4 days later, the low was 53.
Oh, I was in shorts the other day. Go figure.
Welcome to the Mid-South.
Yeah, it's a little extreme. But, Alan, before the break, we were talking about several things, but you said we got a text.
We did indeed. So apparently you are not the only Buc-ee's fan out there.
Oh, nice. Okay. Yeah, so, we did talk about Buc-ee's the first hour of the show.
So the text is, if we're on the road and there is a Buc-ee's 3 exits after our destination, we're going to go 3 exits further.
3 exits after or before?
Yeah, they'll skip their own exit to go to Buc-ee's, 3 exits down to turn around and come back.
Then take care of it.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. Well,
that's how much people love Buc-ee's.
Absolutely. So, okay, yeah, Buc-ee's is an institution, and you either get it or you don't, and that's fine. We want happy faces at Buc-ee's. So, but anyway, Max,
our next text was cat birthdays. Seriously?
Yeah. Well, Max, you talked about Flossie the cat, and this Flossie's been getting a lot of mileage this week.
Fair play to Flossie for getting that old.
Turned 27. Right?
27.
Okay. Anyway, Max has been researching that all morning. So, hey, Alan, before we get to anything else, too, I want to just wrap up. Right before the break, we were talking about design flaws. I'm calling this, partial design flaws. Right. I like tankless water heaters. I like the concept of you basically have unending hot water. You could run the shower for an hour and you stay. I like the concept, but there are some elements of tankless water heaters. I don't know if it's that they're being put in the wrong location or something, but there are vulnerable spots when you have a power outage or something, and if you have a tankless water heater in your attic or something, those connections can be exposed to extreme cold and they can break. So we've got to perfect that a little bit.
I think what we need to do is reevaluate our aesthetics.
Okay.
Oh, but I don't want to see that nasty old hot water tank. Trust me, yes, you do. I don't mean put it in the middle of the kitchen. I mean, let's have a designated spot. So the next time you build your house, remember everything in it is going to fail.
Yeah, I mean, at some point you get a power outage.
So if you put a hot water tank in the attic on the 3rd floor, guess where that water is going to go? Oh, well, it has a drip pan and a drain that has never worked ever, said anybody. So
they can clog. You get insects that crawl in from the outside. One dead mouse,
and your whole house is going to be needing ceilings, floors, carpeting.
Right.
So this is one of these things of where plan on failure. And plan on ease of fixing it and replacing it.
Yeah.
So swallow some of your aesthetics. You can put the pizza oven on the other side, whatever. But make sure that you put, and this is kind of like, all right, all you builders and contractors out there, make this a selling point of the house.
Yeah, that it's on an interior space.
You know, here you go. The hot water tank is in this closet right here. It's got a floor drain. You can even put one of those little shower steps so that water can't get out into the rest of the house. And if it fails, it's going down the drain. But now it's easy to get to. It's easy to fix. It's easy to service, and it's not going to freeze.
Right. Yeah. I think that's just planning on failure and being realistic, you know. So tankless water heaters, I love you. You just need to be,
don't put them in the attic. Please stop doing that.
Put them in the right space. Yeah. So, okay. You know who puts things in the right space every time, Alan?
No, absolutely.
I don't know if he's going to like this.
Not you all.
Is that a good segue? Anyway, our good buddy Larry Brown with Brown Refrigeration. Half the time I wonder if I'm going to be getting angry phone calls after the show.
All right, trust me, after some of the situations I've put his guys in, yes, that is a great segue.
Okay, well, I was dealing with one of his guys this week, Alan. Bill. You know Big Bill.
I know Big Bill.
I have a customer. She's got a beautiful home. It's the one I've been working at forever. Well, I've never really spent much time. I haven't gone upstairs in the attic because I haven't any projects up there. But she's had some issues with basically air circulation, you could say, because there's on her upstairs. Perfect example. You go on one side, the rooms are roasting hot.
Right.
You go across the hallway, and it's being serviced by the same unit, and it's ice cold. Well, I went up in the attic, and it turns out the ductwork is squirreling. I don't know how this stuff even passed code. Anyway, the ductwork, there's this huge run. It's not configured correctly, whatever, by the time. So anyway, Bill came over, and he pointed out a few things that need repair. Right. But also they're going to reconfigure the whole thing. Anyway, he shows up, and it's just really interesting to listen to his guys because it's not just Larry Brown, and it's not just the great Mrs. Brown. It's everybody on their team.
Yes.
They're consummate professionals. They show up. They're well trained. They know what's going on, and they understand an HVAC unit, which, to be honest, Alan, is still like rocket science to me. I don't really fully understand how it works, and if it was made of wood, I'd be in good shape. Yeah, but Brown Refrigeration, man, it's such a great. It's a real pleasure doing business with a company like them. Reputable. They are up on the latest technology, including clean air technology, which continues to evolve. And we talk about the importance of clean air because it's not just eating and drinking healthy; it's breathing healthy. And when you have air that is not only coming out of your system clean, but it's also cleaning every surface that it lands on.
Indeed.
That's science right there. So they incorporate the Remy Halo system with all of their HVAC units. Sometimes you might need just a tune-up. Maybe your unit, it's worth getting a tune-up once a year. It's almost, it's not free, but it's as close to free as you can get.
You take your car in, You have somebody come look at your AC.
This is a lot cheaper than tuning up your car too. It's like, and they're always running specials. You know, what I recommend is take advantage of these specials he runs whenever he comes on Tool Talk Radio. But anyway, if you have any HVAC needs, you can also monitor, and you can also handle your HVAC needs on your with the smart home technology right from your phone, and make it run as efficiently as possible. And it's just a great business culture over there with Brown Refrigeration. So get in touch with them. You can call them directly at 901-362-1881, or go to brownref.com. All right, Alan, I've been looking forward to this discussion all day.
And now, great moments in building history.
All right. Well, Alan, it's funny because I noticed a trend over the last few weeks, and especially with the things we've been dealing with in home improvement. This is basically, I don't even know, is it home improvement or just home, just protection, survival basically. So I'm like, we need something that's cheerful and something interesting, and it doesn't have any downsides to it, more or less. And I got to give my wife credit. She said, have you ever thought about talking about the Grand Canyon Skywalk? And of course, I've heard of it, haven't been there. I do. Have you been to the Grand Canyon before?
I have not. I have flown over it 1,000 times, but I have never actually been to it.
I have flown over it many times, but it's apparently it's got to be anybody that has the opportunity. They say you go to the Grand Canyon and people weep when they see it. It's a very emotional thing, and even the best cameras don't really give you the effect of being there. It's just something. It is a natural wonder of the world. It's one of the most beautiful places you could go, especially when you start getting there around sunset or sunrise when all those shadows are being around. But anyway, I want to say, when was this out? Was this 2011 when they built this? No, maybe it was. I should have checked the date. I got everything except the date.
It opened in March of 2007.
So it started in 2003, right?
Yes.
Okay. So
construction began in 2003.
So basically, what you have is you have almost this untouched beauty of nature, and the Wallapai tribe and an entrepreneur named Dave Ginn got together, and they wanted to construct something very unique. I guess this is called the world's largest cantilever bridge. I don't even know what cantilever. I hate to admit it.
Okay. What is a cantilever? Let's start there so you get the magnificence of what this is.
Yeah.
A cantilever is a diving board.
Oh, okay. Well then, okay. So it's freestanding.
So most of a diving board is unsupported.
Right.
But it is massively supported at one end or one side.
Right.
We actually discussed a cantilever structure a little while back. It was the Horyuji, which in Japan, it relies upon cantilevers, that big pagoda area.
That's why it hasn't collapsed in Fort. It's a wooden structure that's survived like 600 or 800 years or something.
More or less. It's the structure itself is still there.
Okay.
So a full cantilever bridge is thinking of anything that is going to go out into space unsupported. So there are not going to be any trusses or anything like. If you see the old Westerns,
right,
and they got the bridge going across, the railway tracks going across the canyon, they've got trusses all the way down to the ground to support the weight.
Or think of an airplane wing.
Yeah, or think of Gothic structures, or think of Gotham City with all the arched.
Now anything that arches out into the air and just hangs there is cantilevered.
Well, they want you to. So basically, what they were trying to create, folks, is a situation where because you go to the edge of this canyon. So this is at at Eagle Point,
right?
And Eagle Point is fascinating. If you look at it, it's this natural structure that when you step back, it looks like an eagle.
Yes,
right there. It's a really beautiful thing. It's very important to the Wallapai people, and they wanted to more or less create a situation. They call it a skywalk for a reason.
Oh yes,
it's almost a spiritual experience. You walk out there, and because it looks to me like the shape of one of those horseshoe magnets. Like
it is,
and so basically it's a horseshoe shape. The bottom is made of glass, This thing is, you go out there, the sides are made of glass, and I'm sure people that have issues with height must be. I saw videos of people walking.
This would be
in
your version of a nightmare.
They're clutching the handrail, and they're but it's got to be a pretty interesting experience. 4,000 feet above the Colorado River, it extends 70 feet out over the edge. Well, when they were designing this, it was very important to. I think the way they put it was they wanted a minimal visual footprint of this. They didn't. In other words, the Grand Canyon is the star of the show. They don't want this massive structure, so they wanted to do this in the least obtrusive way possible. They even painted the entire structure the same color as the canyon. So if you were stepping way back, it might just blend in like camouflage.
Right, if you see a picture of this from the side and you were at a distance, you probably wouldn't even really notice it.
Right. That was the point.
However, if you get close up and take a picture of it, and you look at a picture of this thing from the side, 2 words will leap to mind, and that is just no way.
So it looks like you're like, I'm not going out there.
All right. Yeah. So basically, picture this.
Yeah.
We've all taken a garden hose and bent it over in the middle or something like that, right?
Yeah.
All right. So just picture taking like a piece of conduit or something and putting a big U-bend in it.
Yeah.
And then laying it down on the table so that the U part sticks off the edge of the table.
Right.
All right.
Good way to describe it.
That is exactly what you're now going to walk on 4,000 feet unsupported in the air off the edge of Eagle Point.
With a glass bottom.
Right.
And glass sides. I mean, the whole thing feels very exposed.
It is designed to give you the experience of a condor.
Yeah. Well, it says Skywalk.
It is.
You feel like you're walking in the sky.
You are not being sold short anything in this experience.
Apparently, just, because it extends 70 feet, and just the fact that you are out above it changes the entire thing. It's a lot different than looking over the edge of a.
There's no looking over the edge. You are over the edge.
So obviously there's a lot of challenges. One thing that really struck me, Alan, was it's not just okay. So they had we should give a shout out to the this guy named Mark Johnson. It's MRJ Architects. They're the firm that designed this baby, because it's not just a matter. If you look at the Grand Canyon, you see all these layers, and you see it looks. It looks solid, but honestly, it's almost like one of these pastries where you could flake the layers away and everything right out.
Yes, you could. Yes.
So the first people to consult were the geologists, because it looks very solid, but you need to know what's going on. This thing weighs like 1.5 million pounds.
Yes.
It's heavy. And the glass is heavy too. I mean, each pane of glass weighs 1,200 pounds or something. So, so they have to be able to construct something and put it on a surface that can support it. Well, Alan, apparently the first location they had, there was a fault line, and the geologists luckily discovered this, that pointed. I want to say the fault line went towards the opening of the canyon.
Yes.
And what would have happened is if you put the weight on. It would have
snapped off.
It would have slid in the canyon. Well, they said, hey, then they did some more exploration. They said 100 yards this way is an ideal spot, because the fault line actually goes in towards towards inland, you could say, and it would make a much more stable base. So just the fact that, that alone was its own work to do that, because it cost
the sheer rock work itself was going to decide if this project ever happened.
And they also had to dig these pylons. They have I want to say 21 pylons, and they go pretty deep. They want to go 50. I don't know if they go 50 yards into this thing. They go very deep into the,
And they go far back. So, this is drastically cantilevered. So you would actually have to knock most of Eagle Point off for this thing to fail.
Right. So here,
literally, the mountain would have to fail for this to fail. And to be honest, with how they set this, is basically they put it in like a dentist puts in a false tooth.
Oh, all right. How do they do that?
It is honestly drilled and mounted and concreted into the actual depth of the mountain.
Right. So
this was a massive undertaking.
Here's what I thought you would find interesting out. So and I like your description. You said basically you can picture, I keep picturing this magnet, the horseshoe shaped magnet or something. But if you have so basically the horseshoe, it sticks out 70 feet, which means that the straight ends so the whole entire thing goes back another probably 100 and something feet, right? I mean, I didn't measure
further than that.
So only really a third of this structure is sticking out.
Correct.
Okay, and this thing, as we said, it weighs 1.2 million pounds. And the thing is, so they constructed the horseshoe on land. They constructed it on the edge before and then they had to basically take the horseshoe and start rolling it out.
Yes.
Well, that created its own thing. What if the ground tilted and this thing suddenly slid?
Anything.
And what fascinated me, Alan, was they used an ancient technique that we're going back thousands of years of the rod and plate method, where that's more or less you take a log. I think we saw this in the 10 Commandments or something when they did that. Basically, you just take a log, you take a roll, a bar. You roll it a little bit. You take one bar out, put it in the front.
In the front, roll it a little bit.
Well, just imagine, even if this thing weighs 1.2 million pounds, if the ground even slipped a little, you better step back. It's going on. So that was a marvel. Everything about the way they had to do this.
You were one pigeon from disaster.
Yeah. But that part was very interesting. It really apparently went off without a hitch. We also failed to mention this thing has to. It's windy over there, and winds can come from any direction, including up. And
especially up.
This thing is built to handle up to 100-mile-an-hour winds. It can withstand an 8.0 magnitude earthquake. Okay, this stat was very interesting to me, Alan. It said that it can support the weight of 71 747 airplanes.
Yes,
that's a very random statistic. I mean, why didn't they just tell us how many pounds that is? That's. For one thing, how are you going to stack all those airplanes on the end? But I think that's a fun way of... They were just
pointing out that, by the time you added up all the tonnage that it would take to move this thing, you could stack airplanes to the sky.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. So there's a couple little other things we want to mention with this. And, of course, before we get out of here today, we are going to chime in on 30 Years of Stupid and my experience with plumbing disasters. You're listening to Tool Talk Radio here at News Talk 98.9 The Roar, Memphis. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
You have no skills and you're a loser!
News Talk 98.9 The Roar of Memphis.
Yeah.
Somebody
I've dealt with those guys.
Somebody turned Max's mic on too early.
Anyway, welcome back to Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Alan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com. And the ever feisty Max over there behind the glass. You can call or text us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989. And we invite you to go to Tool Talk Radio's Facebook page and give us a like and check out the action over there. And including our must-have items of the week, which we're going to get to momentarily. And it's funny, this is one of the first times where the must-have item of the week is probably going to lead into a 30 Years of Stupid discussion.
Easily.
Before the break, though, Alan, we were talking about our great moments in building history, and it was just kind of a refreshing conversation because, I haven't seen a whole lot of downside with this. I feel like this project has been well constructed. It seems like it's an inspirational, an inspirational construction. They did it right. It's going to be around for generations to come, and that's the Grand Canyon Skywalk over in northern Arizona. And when we were given some of the statistics, it's hard to appreciate what a big deal this was in terms of a in terms of an engineering marvel, because it looks so minimal. It looks very simple when you look at it, Alan. It looks like a diving board, like you said, with a glass bottom, a horseshoe-shaped diving board that you're going extending 70 feet out over a 4,000-foot drop, in the canyon.
And here's the thing, 70 feet just doesn't sound like much.
Well,
70 feet sounds small when you're sitting here. When you're looking at this thing, that 70 feet looks like about 7 miles.
It's nuts. Yeah. So, but one thing that I appreciate when you go there, because they're always, the Grand Canyon is just it's a natural marvel, and I do like the way whoever's in charge of the Grand Canyon in terms of maintaining it and keeping it from getting, you don't see a bunch of billboards there. You don't see, hopefully, a bunch of garbage and everything. One thing, when you go out on this skywalk, you're not even allowed to bring a phone or anything. You can't bring your drinks. They don't want a bunch of stuff winding up at the bottom of this canyon and everything, but they do have professional photographers on hand because people are going to want their picture taken.
Oh, yes.
So they've got at any given time they got 7 or 8 photographers, and then you can get it. I guess they send it to you or whatever, so you can get your photo ops. People, don't worry. But it's the construction is pretty impressive. But Alan, the I don't know if these are the unsung heroes, but all of this is made possible because of expert welding. Basically, this thing was assembled in sections, and I don't do much welding. I did a little bit when I was younger, but Alan, this is you're supporting 1.2 million pounds of steel through welds. So
Okay, well-
what the heck is that? That seems impressive.
All right, well, let's tie this. Let me tie it mentally into a roof for you.
Okay, yeah,
All right, see, you and I both know how a roof works.
sure.
A roof is a miracle of just basically gravity.
Mm-hmm.
So roof number 1 gets a drop of water on it, and it covers part of roof layer number 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 all the way down.
Right.
So there's a certain amount of overage and coverage that allows it to be supported. All right,
Okay.
well, with a cantilever, we know that gravity is constantly going to be pulling down at a consistent force
Right.
based on the weight. So that when you layered the steel to go into this, you layered it in such a way that the weight pulling down on it cantilevers up into the one above it, and that is where you put your weld and your seal. And then you move down to the next one, and you do the same thing so that it is constantly self-supporting itself as it reaches out. So not only is it amazing welding,
Right.
it's amazing physics.
I was
And
about
the
to say this
fact-
sounds like a physics situation. So, yeah.
Well, this is where science, construction, aesthetics, this is a beautiful, absolutely beautiful example of what happens when everybody gets in tune.
right.
Because now, and as we always say, everything's impossible until somebody does it.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations. And, back in the year 2000, when they were designing this idea, they were literally putting every idea they could on the table to figure out if this could even be done.
Yeah, it's funny because we look at it and we see giant skyscrapers. We see all these things. It's like, of course we can build this. Well, not necessarily. You're dealing with nature. You're dealing with weight. You're dealing with all these factors. You're dealing with wind. You're dealing with earthquakes.
And massive kudos to the architectural firm that learned from every failure in the past.
Sure. Yeah.
It's a skywalk. Well, how did the skywalk in a hotel in Singapore fail?
Right.
Well, it failed because they didn't do this. Well, we're not gonna make that mistake.
Right.
So every aspect of this, so every weld had to be perfect. Every weld had to have a secondary fail-safe so that everything that goes, when you look at the actual construction, how this was put together, it almost looks like they were welding together like a dragon. It's not giant pieces like you think. It is smaller bites, each one cantilevering and supporting itself with its welds into the next piece.
Yeah, they said there's tens of thousands of welds on this thing.
Yes.
So, and it's fascinating, and it's smooth as. You look at the outside of this thing. Whoever, because they also want it to look aesthetically pleasing. So all those welds
and
were
unobtrusive. So
right.
This was a real balancing act of getting it built, putting it out there. And I'm going to add one more thing because I'm big into maintenance, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It is maintainable because they added places where they can check and maintain the health of this over the years.
Yeah, because they showed the guys that have to clean the glass from underneath.
Yeah,
but they've got harness. They've got rails where they can just clip on their harnesses, swing underneath, and
watching
all that,
them do that is probably as good a show as you would see in any circus.
Right.
Because it's just astounding when you look at this.
We encourage you to get on YouTube or go somewhere and do some research, and especially if you're out west, it's worth it. I want to say this is the western side of the Grand Canyon, and that I feel like the Grand Canyon is just a must.
County, right?
A must go. I mean, that's got to be on everybody's bucket list. I plan on getting there. My wife's gone there a couple times. She said it has to be experienced in person. You can't appreciate it, until you've been there. So hopefully you'll have a better trip than the Brady Bunch had when they got kidnapped by the guy from Gilligan's Island. What was that?
I think well, I don't think the Brady Bunch is a big worry right here, Joe.
Okay, anyway. But anyway, check it out, the Grand Canyon Skywalk. So, all right, Alan, I've put it off long enough. This is actually a must-have item of the week with some, I wish we'd have given this out 2 weeks ago, but who would have known what we were in for?
Your must-have item of the week ties in with one of my items I harp on constantly, and that is a water key.
Exactly.
The ability
It all ties together.
Turn off the water in the event of a failure.
Well, folks, if you go to our Facebook page, because I'm holding up 3 things, actually, Alan. One of the things I didn't actually bring in because you can't. So our must-have items of the week this week are a pressure sensitive, a tension.
You have a tension adjustable pipe cutter.
This thing is small, folks. It's probably 3 inches across. It's adjustable. It's as simple as it could be. It's almost like a little vise that you close with a blade on it. It's sort of a very thin round blade, and basically you simply squeeze the pipe. And you go around a few times.
You twist the whole thing around the pipe, then you tighten it a little more, twist it around the pipe, tighten it a little more, and your pipe will get a nice, clean cut.
You still have to deburr it a little. You want to keep a little knife, but it's a much cleaner cut than a hacksaw. Oh, yeah. Hacksaws will bend the pipe. It'll,
Well, you're pushing and pulling and yanking.
Right. The second thing I as part of this duo is a shark bite. What is this one called? It's a shark bite. What is this? You gave me a word for it earlier.
Oh, that is a tension grip.
A tension grip. It's basically
you just push it on there, and it grabs, provides tension, and prevents back pull.
This does not look like it should work. If you have a pipe repair, I guess I should say this is to repair like a water line,
right?
And you talk about high pressure coming out of a water line. These are like
up to 72 psi.
Right. These shark bite repairs are great. You literally slip it into place. It takes a little. You have to know what you're doing. You don't just because once they're on, they don't come back off. You got to cut them off. You can get them off, but they're good, whatever. But the thing is, you got to measure correctly. If you don't, go to YouTube and check out a little tutorial. The third part of this is having just somewhere in your garage. Just keep it handy for the next disaster. It's a water line. Some people have 1/2-inch water lines. Some people have 3/4. I want to believe most houses have 1/2-inch.
Yes.
I mean, 3/4 is probably industrial, right, Alan?
So I deal in that in the commercial world.
Go stick a 10-foot piece of pipe somewhere, and just because what you want is So, Alan, we had. I'm going to overlap this, I guess, with our 30 years of stupid, more or less. And Max, you don't necessarily have to cue the sound effects here, but basically, me, like many people, we had a frozen pipe, and I did everything you're supposed to do, Alan. I dripped the pipes. Right. We ran the water, and it still froze, anyway.
It can happen.
So when you have something like this is a great way to fix it. You take these shark bites are, most people can do them. This little pipe cutter, it's very simple. I dare say even your kids could cut a pipe with this.
Yes.
It's pretty safe. I don't know how you hurt yourself with this thing.
I like the trio for the names of these. These items this week. It makes me think of the law firm Sharkey. It's Sharkey, Cutter, and Copper.
Yeah, I could see that.
That works.
A Three Stooges law firm
that
or
works.
something like that.
Works.
Sharky. But yeah, shark bite. These things are great. And I like the simplicity of them, and they are plumber code approved. It's an approved repair. Some repairs are not approved. I mean, they make this crazy like literally it's like a repair tape. That's
Yes.
a temporary emergency measure.
That
That's
is
not a
that is
approved.
to stop the water today until the plumber can get there.
They
Yes.
have soldering. Soldering is something you could do. The reason I'm leery with that, Alan, is it involves a blowtorch right up next to a tuba, to a
Yes.
rafter and stuff.
Again, a professional needs to be doing that, not
And if
not-
you miss
not
a little drip,
standard homeowner.
it's
right.
not going to. Yeah, these I like because they're pretty safe and most people can handle them. And so I just want to say, so now leading into our 30 years of stupid, the reason I mention this, I'm just sharing. I know many people all over town had their burst water pipes. I feel like mine's sort of interesting just because it's a perfect 30 years of stupid, Alan. So,
Okay.
So if anybody has listened to Tool Talk for any number of years, they know that I live in a house that is Cape Cod style, which is
Right.
basically the upstairs has the angled roof. So what that winds up creating is on each side of my house, I have like a 30 or 40-foot run, whatever it is, of this little. It's technically an attic, but we never use the space because it's just this it's like a 45-degree angle, and it's maybe 4 feet wide and 4 feet
Right.
tall. So it's this little cramped space, but it's still technically an attic. So we stick we stick our Christmas decorations up, and we use that. So anyway,
Okay.
we had a burst pipe that started leaking. Thank goodness we were home. We heard the water starting. Suddenly the as the temperatures warmed up, I guess the ice melted and suddenly it started working again. Well, we heard it coming out of the ceiling right above right by that area where we have that crawl space or that attic space. So luckily I was home. I ran out to the street, turned off the water immediately,
Right.
which is unless you have a main cutoff in your house, which we don't. We have to cut it off at the street. Everybody in the house needs to know how to cut the water off,
Yes.
right? How many times have we shouted that from the mountaintops? Because it averted a disaster. This pipe
And
that
we
I
will continue to shout it.
I showed as part of our must-have item of the week, I cut this little segment of pipe off. Alan, this slit is like maybe a half an inch or three-quarters of an inch wide. Go
And
ahead,
for
next.
and for geeky fans out there, it looks like a face like Yaphet from the Orville.
It kind of does. He looks like he's smiling. So it looks, and so I cut this off, and I'm going to save it. One day it'll be a Christmas ornament. Because
Oh, yeah.
literally on Christmas Day, it was the lamest Christmas ever. My wife and I and my son, we spent the whole day working on flood mitigation.
Yes.
Anyway, but so this little half-inch gap in the course of less than three minutes, it dumped a good 6 gallons of water because I measured. Because what we did is as soon as it started leaking, we got trash cans, poked a hole in the ceiling
Right.
to relieve the water, and
Right.
it just started pouring out. So, folks, if you ever get this situation, get something like a trash can or something, poke a hole in it with like maybe a Phillips head screwdriver or something, and let the water relieve itself so it's not spreading out and
Right.
soaking all your rafters and everything like that. And so basically I used the shark bite and all that to fix it. However, the part that ties in with 30 years of stupid, Alad, is I went up to the attic after all is said and done, and I'm like, okay, I got to track this pipe down. Well, this is an attic space. I told you I literally have never gone up there. Well, I get back there about 7 or 8 feet, and I see this water line sitting directly. It's literally a water line sitting on top of the rafters with no insulation around it at all, just sitting there. I'm like, well, obviously this isn't it because it would have burst. We've been in this house 20 years. It would have burst years ago. There's no way a water line with no insulation is not going to burst. Am I wrong, Alan? I mean,
You just got lucky.
I'm looking at it, and I just ignored it, and I'm hunting. I'm pulling up insulation. I spent 2 hours looking for this water line, and my wife goes, are we sure this line isn't it? And I said, well, how could there be a water line? Anyway, the long and short of it was this line was it. I started hunting around. I got one of those little mirrors and everything.
Right.
And sure enough, this crack was on the inside of a rafter,
On the bottom
whatever.
edge. Yes.
And I'm like, if I ever meet the guy that, in fact, I put it on Facebook. I said, if I ever meet the guy that installed our plumbing, I'm going to,
Punch
anyway.
him right in the mouth.
But,
Yep.
Alan, how is this possible? Somebody just ran a water line, didn't insulate it at all. So what are the dangers when you do that? Let's just say, I mean.
I think you
saw
got
them.
them covered right there. Well, again, here's
And
where,
that includes a hot water line, too. They all need to be insulated.
All right, well, your hot water line is actually more dangerous than your cold water line.
Yeah.
Because hot water, A, freezes faster than cold water. Go figure.
Yeah.
But
Is that
B,
true? I've
yes,
never believed
no,
that.
that is true. The distance between the molecules allows the ice crystals to form faster. It is actually a time-proven, myth-busted kind of thing.
I thought Mythbusters said that wasn't. Okay,
No,
who cares?
it is
I don't
actually
want to
true.
get sidetracked.
But
But they'll all freeze eventually.
They will
with
all
no-
freeze
yeah.
if you put enough cold on them.
Right.
So here is once again aesthetics and convenience versus really thinking what could fail.
Yeah.
Again, once again, everything in your home will fail eventually. That wall socket will have to be replaced. That knob is going to have to go. That piece of pipe is probably going to have to be repaired or replaced at some point. Back during the 50s and early 60s,
That's when my house was built. Yeah.
We had a lot of, how should we say, well, the weather here just doesn't get that bad mentality. So we didn't take lessons from further north. Let's say somebody in Nashville would have never done this.
Yeah.
But a builder from South Mississippi would certainly do this because our winters aren't that cold.
And they probably said, well, I'm building this myself, and I'll just remember to drip the pipe. I will say what that told me is we've been pretty diligent for the last 20 years about dripping the pipes when it gets cold enough.
Right, but in this
because
particular
somehow it never
case,
froze. But
all right,
yeah.
well, in this particular case, you probably over the years, because of your roof situation, you've had what I've called a cold jet.
Yeah.
And you have probably frozen this pipe numerous times in the past. It just didn't burst.
Right. Yeah. Because it does take some pressure to burst it.
It
so.
takes quite a bit of pressure to burst it. And you'll notice it also didn't burst until it started warming up.
Well, it probably split, but there's a form
the
of ice there holding the water back.
Kept
so.
the water back until that piece of ice actually gave way and then the water began spraying.
Right.
So you probably over the years have had a cold jet of air blowing on this pipe to cause weakness in it.
Right.
And this year, even though you got a beautiful brand new roof, it's still, because the pipe wasn't insulated, got cold enough to split the weakness.
Yeah.
It makes me think of a concept in a martial art that I practice called Aikido, called kuzushi, which is the gradual erosion of your opponent's balance.
Exactly.
And so the gradual erosion of the pipe occurred just by these minor incidents that slowly added up to the boom.
Well, then you have the
Flooded
big
ceiling.
event like this one.
Yeah.
And, you know, here it's kind of like, again, outside spigots. I promise you this spring, I would say probably 20% of the outside spigots in Memphis, Tennessee are going to need to be updated, replaced, because they're going to start leaking.
Because of what we had
Because we
happen
froze
now. Yeah.
the little gasket, the little metal gasket in there, froze and got damaged, and now it's going to drip.
Well, here's another,
So-
we're always talking about detective work as a
Yes.
homeowner. Okay, well, here's what I think the problem is, Alan. About 3 years ago, we got a new sink faucet in our kitchen.
Right.
Well, okay, when I let the pipes drip before this big cold snap that came in, I feel like I did. So, in other words, it's a single handle. Instead
Right.
of having like a hot and cold faucet,
Right.
it's just, okay. So, when I lifted it, I more or less had it in the middle. Well, apparently, when it's in the middle, you're barely getting any cold water, which I didn't assume.
Correct.
It turns out with our particular faucet, you almost have to have it all the way to the
over,
right,
right.
before it opens up the cold water. And so I'm thinking I probably just didn't have it open enough. So
You didn't.
if you've got a faucet, you got to really understand how it works, because sometimes you may feel
Yeah.
like you're doing it evenly, but you may not be.
All right.
So-
Well, generally, a faucet, if you really want to think about it, is a water mixer.
yeah,
Because you have
this one
cold on one
especially.
side,
Yeah.
you have hot on the other, and you're adjusting the handles to the proper temperature mix.
Mm-hmm.
And water is always going to take the line of least resistance. So, because if your hot water is producing a good, steady, constant pressure, which it usually is, because
Yeah.
the hot water tank is providing a buffer, your cold water may be a little more variable. So your cold water can lose in that situation, and in which case you may have had a pre-weakened pipe, you had an exposed pipe during an extreme weather event, and that spot right there is where it happened to choose to fail.
And I'm shocked to admit this. I'm not admitting anything. I'm shocked to have experienced this. I talked to several people over the last week that said, we never drip our pipes. We never do whatever. We've never had an accident. Well, your day is coming, my friend.
It will.
You better respect the cold, especially here in the Mid-South, because it can happen. And we should say, Alan, that even if your pipes are froze, you keep the spigot open, because
it gives
the pressure
ice
that builds up,
go.
it has to build. Right. Yeah, and the air pressure. It basically, I guess, what causes the split is, isn't it when you're closing the system, you're giving that stuff. You're giving it nowhere to
somewhere.
go. So keep it open. Let it breathe, basically. So, and the last part of this was one of the reasons I like having a tent. This was a good 25-foot, I'd say about a 25-foot run of just pure exposed pipe in my attic. So I took the 10-foot pipe and replaced that, because I figured, well, there's probably a lot of other weakness there. And plus, it gives you a little bit of wiggle room. I will say this, if you try to replace like a little 5-inch segment of a pipe with these shark bites, that's a little tricky. You need a little room to kind of move the pipe, and I hate to say, not bend it, but kind of flex it a little bit.
Yeah,
so
there's a little give to the connections, yes.
But also double check that the connections are perfectly tight, and all. There, I would definitely go to YouTube for this. There's some good tips out there. Yeah.
And also, folks, when you're doing this, double check that your cat doesn't get into the attic too.
Yeah, my cat Victor
decided to help.
Yeah, he thought it would be great to get way back in the attic.
Oh, yeah.
So, but anyway, gosh, I wish we'd have given this advice a couple weeks ago. But now we're telling you, because we're only at the beginning of winter. So I would get these.
Water is your enemy, folks.
And when you went to the big box store, these shark bites were one of the quickest things to go. So just get it now while you can. Maybe order it from Amazon. Just get a packet of these. So, but Alan, the pipe's all insulated. It's all sealed up. Everything's good now. And but folks, hopefully you're dealing with the fallout.
Well, once again, our cautionary tales. Check the pipes. Look in your attic. Listen for hissing. Hissing is a great sound to listen for. And let's double check that outside electrical.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this will be a continuing discussion, Alan, because like we say, we're only kicking off the winter. But Alan, another episode of Tool Talk Radio is in the can. It's time to get out of here. So on behalf of my buddy Alan Gilbreth and our pal Max over there behind the glass, I'm Joe Thorderson. Thanks for listening to Tool Talk Radio, and we'll see you next week.